All right, thank you for joining us, everybody, at the Not Everything Black and White podcast. This is my buddy Rocco. We will be a platform and a podcast that will be an alternative news source. Moving forward, we think that the legacy media has been very shifty in the way that they report news. So we look to be an alternative, right? To get a little common sense and to discuss topics in politics, trade, the stock market, and a plethora of other different things. I'll let Rocco kind of go into some of the stuff we want to go over too as well.
Yep. We're going to talk about taxes, economics, geopolitics, Ukraine war, Israel, Gaza, the things that the Trump administration is doing, things that we disagree with, things that we agree with. Me and John and I were both former Democrats. We switched over. I switched over about like 2014. I believe he just switched over maybe a year and a half ago. So we want people to our goal is really to get people politically involved and give you some facts, because I feel like a lot of legacy media is dying. Legacy media only got about 5 years left, if that. I mean, maybe even less, because now that USAID now got defunded, that Doge found, and Politico was literally getting $9 million. New York Times was getting $28 million. Those industries are going to die once the bureaucracy starts to die. So we're doing this. We want people to get involved. We want you to critically think. We're not trying to even persuade you to the Republican Party per se or anything like that. We just want you to get involved and to hear an alternative voice, like you said. Yeah. I think that's the best.
Yeah, I think it's super important that we kind of dissect that and go over that at the beginning. I think to many people, when they watch throughout time, it'll feel like it is maybe right-wing ideas. However, many of the things that I feel are still socially very liberal. A lot of people say it, but I'm still, in my mind, a liberal. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, just moved beyond that point, and their focus is ulterior motives at this point. So, if I'm being honest, I'm probably a libertarian. So that's will display in many of my opinions and my takes. I think less is more when it comes to government. And I would say the preface for everything with me is my focus is on the Black and Latino community. I think things are shifting as time moves forward. However, from the research that I've done and the time that I've took mostly to look over the financials, is that typically the leadership that we vote for is not in our best interest financially. So that's a big focus of mine, and it's super important to mine. Throughout the years, I've taken quite a bit of backlash for some of my opinions and takes, as you would imagine. But my worldviews are the same as they will continue to be, and my principles are those of a person who is a conservative Christian, which I feel like there's many out there that look like me that have those same guidelines, right, and the same way that they live their life. So it's important to me to work with my friends on this and have a platform where it's an alternative. And we'll have guests on from all walks of life. We plan on, our rollout is going to be awesome for the first couple weeks. In the first few episodes, we have a judge coming on. I actually have a congressman scheduled to come on, and we'll also have some influencers and things like that. So we're really going to mix it up. It'll be pretty political for the most part, but we also look to have some social media influencers on and to expand as time goes on. So, with that being said, there's a few things that we want to go over. I'll let Rocco kind of lead the way. To be honest, I think it's good to have full transparency. So I will say we will definitely take on some topics that you're not going to hear about on your local news station, and we'll do that for a specific reason, right? So part of it is viewership, but the other part is I think it's important to have a common sense approach, and the media has been really terrible. And if you get your news strictly from those different outlets, a lot of times your view on it could be not an educated one, I guess is the best way to say it. So it's super important, and we have a bunch of cool stuff rolled out. So I don't know, Rocco, what do you want to touch on first? What do you think?
He was talking about the legacy media. The biggest peddlers, they always want to categorize anyone that is not the legacy media as peddlers of misinformation, disinformation, when in reality, the biggest peddlers of misinformation, disinformation has always been the legacy media. They are captured by corporations. They are captured by big money donors. They're captured by big pharma. So like he said, we're doing this. We want everyone to get involved. And, I'm a big proponent on cutting taxes. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. Trump's administration, they're trying to put it forth in July. No taxes on tips, no tax on Social Security, no taxes on overtime. That's a huge thing for the middle class and the regular person. Okay, it's not going to help the rich like they claim it's going to. They always, whenever someone talks about cutting taxes, the legacy media always has this talking point like, oh, they're cutting tax for the rich, cutting tax for the rich. Listen, if they were cutting tax for rich, they would want it.
Yeah.
They would want the tax cuts.
And really, coming from a banker perspective, I'm going to interject here. You can't tax the rich. It's a common misconception, right? The rich know how to play the game. They know how to play the system. Unfortunately, I get to work for rich people, and very few of them play the taxes that they should. But that's because there's ways and mechanisms that they utilize.
Right, loopholes.
And these are the things that we should teach, right? Like instead of us making our main ingredient to tax the rich, right, which would essentially raise taxes for all of us. And the way I look at it is, if you tax the rich, if you tax Jeff Bezos, let's say we tax him 90%, right? That's the goal of what people want. You want to absorb all his wealth. So essentially, the cost would just go back to the consumer. What do you think Jeff Bezos is going to do? He's going to offset the cost by doing other things, firing employees, having worse work environments, raising the cost of products. Or
he'll just move his company to another country that will not tax him as high.
We've been sold, right? It's another thing that kind of, it's a pain point for me of like, tax the rich is just a ploy to then trickle down the taxes to the people that are not rich. That's essentially what it means. The rich, unfortunately, will never pay taxes, and to be honest, really, it is in our best it's in our best interest as a country across the board. The countries who are generous towards corporations are the companies that are successful. Places like China, where people move their industry, they move there for a specific reason because of the tax code. The best thing you can do is make tax incentives to offset for the rich, so then it becomes more enticing for them to build. A big part of the thing that we're going to discuss moving forward is the tariffs and how they'll be utilized to bring back production in the United States. Over the last, at least 34 years, which is the course of my lifetime, we've experienced all industries be removed and be outsourced to China. People don't understand the ramifications of that. For cheap Shein clothing and cheap sunglasses and knockoff purses, you essentially absorb up the wealth from future generations. And that's kind of what we're experiencing now. That's where the spot where America is. We anticipated years ago, we outsourced all of those sort of jobs, right? The sweatshop jobs, the Jordan sneaker making, the Nike products, because no American wanted to do that. And what we thought in the process is that we would expand on more advanced industries. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Those also went to other Asian countries. So we're right now in the process of undoing what was done by prior administrations of selling you out. And that's why it's so important to me, because if people were aware of these things, I feel like the support will be more equalized. And what I mean by that is, this is not a recruitment, right? If you vote a certain way, I'm okay with that, right? Regardless of how you vote. But my whole thing is at least be able to know what you're talking about, at least be able to stand in the room and debate these topics. If you are a person that posts about politics online, or you have a strong opinion, or you vote in a certain way and you feel passionate in a certain way, you should also be able to then sit down and discuss these topics at length. So that's our goal. That's a big part of it. And we'll continue to, like I said, spread information, and also have, like I said, I'm really looking forward to later down the line. This is kind of our first rollout, is having some people on and kind of dissecting some of these issues a little further.
Yeah, I'll touch on a few things he said. So he talked about the tax the rich situation. So a lot of people don't know this. The top 1% already pay 50% of all income tax.
Correct.
Okay, the top 10% pay 90% of all income tax. And the bottom 50 literally pay nothing. So in order for you to say that, oh, we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax the rich, the government doesn't have a revenue issue. They don't have a money bringing it. They bring in record-breaking money every year. They were getting 4.9 trillion before COVID, and now they're getting 7 trillion. And what do we have to show for that? What increased? Did anything get better? The only thing everything got worse. Inflation was record high. Everything was more expensive because all they did was print money. So when the government gets more money, when they say, oh, we want to tax the rich because we need this money for these social programs or these type of things, they got 2 to 3 more trillion. And what do we have to show for it? You got better roads? You got better schools? Did things get cheaper? Did things get better? Was there more jobs? No. The only thing that happened was corporations got rich. It was literally a transfer of wealth to the middle class, to corporations and billionaires. Okay, that's literally what it was. And then on top of that, these corporations, like he was talking about with the tariffs, these corporations took advantage of us once China joined the world WTO. the World Trade Organization, I believe it was like 30 years ago. I don't know the exact number, but roughly 30 years ago, they joined the WTO. And ever since then, the middle class has been eviscerated, okay? Like you're saying, they shipped all your jobs overseas. Why do you think 30 to 40 years ago, you were able to work in a factory, have one job, and have the mom stay at home and support a family of 4?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And now you have to work 2 jobs. You have to have both parents working. Your kid's in daycare all day, being taken care. I mean, I'm all for daycare. That's fine, but is it better for the child in the long term? Isn't it better for the mother to be home with the child and taking care of the child? And I'm not against women working or anything of that sort, nothing like that. But I mean, we see the statistics of kids. Kids are more depressed than ever. Kids are more sick than ever. Kids are more obese than ever. Kids are less educated than ever. So, and that's another thing. Government has just thrown money endlessly at all these problems. And what do we have to show for it? So when everyone's like, oh, we just need to tax the rich, we just need more tax revenue. No, that's not the savior. That's not the savior at all, actually. It's the complete opposite. When government gets involved with anything, they usually make everything worse.
Yeah, and a major point is, and it's a thing that I've discussed on social media prior, and no one's ever given me pushback on it, because if you really break it down, it's the best way to look at it. So this is like something I thought of prior. I've yet to hear anybody speak on it, but I think of in the regards of what Rocco's talking about is when government gets involved. So this is the best way I think of it. If you have a package, do you trust your package with FedEx, UPS, or do you trust your package with the United States Postal Service, right? If you're talking about housing, right, would you ever live in something that you worked hard, right? You get the opportunity to not be overtaxed, and you get the opportunity to have free will and live where you decide, or would you rather live in government housing? When it comes to student loans were not a significant issue like they are now, right? Where that's the next epidemic that's waiting to happen, is the student loan epidemic with students that don't have careers and jobs to land in, and they're starting their life off with $100,000 in debt, and they're supposed to have an opportunity to raise a family and start a life. I anticipate that that's going to be a huge problem that we probably have to pay a lot of attention to.
Yep.
So it's another facet of where government got involved, and the process didn't get any better. Yeah. And if you're thinking, right, go across the board, and there's not one where the private sector doesn't outperform the government.
Exactly.
And that's my main ingredient.
Exactly.
And I would say with Trump, I think that's my main proponent with him, is the fact that my critique with him is that he could have more decorum, right? He could say things in a different way.
For sure, me too.
However, the thing that really, if I'm being honest, that attracts me the most to him, or any politician that's like him, is any politician who thinks that less is more in that regard. I think we've been fooled to think that the government is our savior, when, especially as me being a person that's with the black community, and this is the thing that comes up, is I feel like the government has destroyed our community. It's been 80 years of voting the same way. It's been 80 years of public assistance, housing, and a welfare state, and it's caused terrible,
worse and worse.
terrible. And the statistics prove that, right? Like, so across the board, the wealth gap has expanded, and it actually starts around the civil rights movement. I think it's always funny when I have a conversation with people of how things went for black people under each administration, and the statistics always will show that during Trump's administration, black employment was at an all-time low that it's been historically in the last 80 years. The black wealth gap closed significantly for the first time since like the 1960s, I believe. Spot checking you on that. So it just goes back to kind of that thing of where I think that people are unaware, and it's emotional issues are utilized as pain points to pull people back from the truth.
Yep.
And that's what our platform will do, is kind of cut through some of the fat and be able to render you a better picture of how things are really going and what the truth is. More government is the worst case scenario. Education is another one that I think about. Is I was unaware of this actually, and I actually saw this on the liberal news site. Is the education numbers of how we've declined since the formation of the Department of Education. We've went from number 1 and slowly trickled, and I believe last I looked we were about at number 22, which I think for a country of our stature with our GDP,
spend the most money on it.
And we spend the most money on it, right? We have the most bureaucracy. We are the world's compass when it comes to everything. So for us to be that far down the line when it comes to education, I think it shows a greater picture. The proof's in the pudding for me.
And to touch on that, before the Department of Education, we were number 1 in education. Since,
forever.
Yeah, we were number one before
Forever.
the Department of Education. Then government gets involved, throws in their money, builds their bureaucracy up, hires 1,000 administrators, doesn't go to anything, doesn't go to the children, doesn't go to actually help the kids, just creates more government jobs. And just to remind you, a government job doesn't actually create wealth. So for a government job to exist, you're paying for it, okay? That's why I don't know why everyone's in outrage about, oh, we need to get rid of government workers. The government's overbloated. It's been overbloated. Everyone's agreed to that for like decades now, but all of a sudden now because Doge and Elon and Trump want to actually do something about it because they have the guts to do it, because Obama wanted Doge. I mean, he had it wasn't called Doge, but he had a government efficiency department where he put Joe Biden in charge of it, okay? And that's why nothing got done. So the Department of Education, like I was saying, they just threw money at it when it didn't need to have money thrown at it. And what happened was the education system went downsloped completely. And just to touch on that, even with healthcare, we spend the most on healthcare than any other country. And if you look at our health system, everyone's agreed once again. Now all of a sudden you guys don't agree because Trump's trying to buck the system of healthcare system, and RFK's trying to buck the system. Mind you, a former Democrat who I supported. I mean, I have the hat and all that I actually bought from. He's actually the first person I donated to their campaign was actually RFK. It wasn't even Trump. So now you finally have someone that wants to buck the system in RFK, and all of a sudden you guys are against it. We spend the most on healthcare. We're the worst developed country in infant deaths. We're the worst developed country. That's not a third world country.
Yeah.
And we spend the most on healthcare. So in what world should we continue to throw more money, create, blow up the bureaucracy more, create more of these government jobs in these fields, and all you have is a downslope? Autism went from 1 to 10,000 to 1 in 32.
Let that resonate. I want you to say that again.
Epidemic. That's
super
epidemic.
important. That's equivalent to, so imagine if we said that 1 in 32 kids that leave the house will die or get hit by a car. 1 in 32 is an astounding statistic.
And it went from one, I think,
and the gap is closing. It
actually,
was 1
it might
in
have been 1 in
36.
100,000.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I think it was 1 in 100,000 actually to one, like 30, 40 years ago. 1 in 100. I don't know the exact numbers. Like you said, spot check me. And that's another thing. We're gonna like fact check ourselves a lot of times. I think it'd be good to even like
and it's
show
important.
things.
We'll make mistakes, but we'll always address it, right? And
right.
And I always implore people that if you're watching, right, I want you to check these things out. Right. That's the most important. That's really what I want to be. I want to be a conduit between you and the truth. So you go and a statistic like that should alarm you, right? It should be something that we're looking to investigate.
Right.
It shouldn't be where we're taking the side of pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
It's ironic to me is that, and it feels like political theater at this point, when I watch news stations, right? And I'll even say some of the right-wing ones,
100%,
but the liberal ones are really bad at it. But it's like you see
bad.
a Cialis commercial, then it's a Viagra commercial, then it's another commercial, and it's just like a drug commercial after other. You have to realize the people that are profiting from it also don't have stake in you being well and being healthy.
Just to touch on that, we're the only country, I think us in Australia,
Yeah,
but basically we're the only country that advertises pharmaceutical products.
That allows it.
We're the only country that advertises it on TV. And like 80% of the commercials are pharmaceutical commercials. So these big pharma people control your legacy media. That's why it's good. That's why they hate platforms like this. Obviously, we're not big, but they hate platforms that start like this and are going to be transparent and are going to be honest and are just want to. Our goal is literally, like I said earlier, just to make you critically think. We want you to get involved. We're going to be honest with you. We're going to be transparent. We're not here to sugarcoat anything. No topic is off limits for us. We're not scared to talk about anything. You know what I mean? We're just going to be authentic as possible to you, and we want you to comment. We want you to comment. Tell us what you want us to talk about. We want to have people that want to challenge our views on. Like I think discourse is the most beautiful thing, to be honest. So I want anybody that really wants to come on, that has some type of insight and wants to actually debate or talk about things, whatever you want to do, to come on this platform. I mean, I'm not scared to talk about my views with anyone. Exactly. He's not scared. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're willing to speak. We're willing to speak and learn about things too.
For several years. So we're battle tested.
Yeah, we're willing to speak and learn too. Like I'm not beholden to any party. I'm not beholden to any person. Do I like Trump? Yes. Do I agree with a lot of the stuff he does? Yes. Do I disagree with some of the stuff he does? Yes. But I'm not a Trump cultist. I'm not. I'm America first at the end of the day. I want all Americans to flourish.
Yeah.
From every race, every creed, every every gender. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I want everyone to flourish and everyone to do well. And I think Trump has a lot of those things going on that will make everyone do well.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you want to touch on some of the things we disagree with Trump, you could.
Yeah. And that's important to me too, though, is the fact that there will be things that I disagree with across the board. This is really so it could be person to person, and we could bring these issues to your doorstep. I'd really like to dumb down issues. Prior to us shooting, I was talking to Rocco about views on immigration, right? And I think that when I speak about it, right, I always feel like I have to preface with the fact that I think that I've worked over the course of years with people that are from other places, right? And immigrants are some of the hardest working people. And really, if I'm being honest, I think they're outpacing the people that are from here, right? Like my clients that I have, the ones that are from other places, they work hard and they create businesses and they create wealth. And honestly, it's kind of alarming to me is the fact that they don't have the same plight as some of the Americans. They come here, right? And we're the ones complaining. But outside of that, I do think that you have to dumb these issues down and think about it like this. When you have a house, right, with your family and you only have X amount of resources, you wouldn't bring in more people. There's a process to it. Exactly. And I think a lot of times what's sold to you as compassion, right, or some sort of heartfelt service, a lot of times can be when politicians do the dirtiest work. So that's some of the things that we're going to uncover too. We'll talk about some things from the past because I think that they're still relevant now, but we'll also talk about how we feel about some of the things moving forward.
Yeah, shallow empathy is a good way to put it. They have shallow empathy. It's not real empathy. It's they want you to just feel. They want you to feel something, so you do something that's not in your best interest. It's actually in their best interest in the long run. To touch on immigration too, another thing. There's another proof that the legacy media lies to you. Remember, all you heard during the election cycle was, oh, they need to pass a border bill to end the immigration crisis. They need to pass a border bill. Trump's in there for what, 100 days? The border crossings went down 97%. And there was no border bill. They just wanted more money. They wanted to call it a border bill the same way they did with what was it?
The Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act that actually increased it. It was literally just a climate bill.
It was a scam.
So this is what the government does. They name these bills something that has nothing to do with what it's actually supposed to do, and they just want money for it. Yeah. And then the bill's 700 pages long, so no regular person is going to read it. Yeah. Half the people in Congress don't read it. They have their aides read it. And then they just vote on party lines. They just vote, oh, I'm a Republican. Okay, I'll vote with Republican.
And they bake in a bunch of stuff, and it's sold. And that's one thing that needs to be exposed. I feel like people need to focus on finances. When it comes to politics, I think that over the years, it was turned into a sports team mentality, right? And people support it like the same way they support the Browns. Even if they suck, they still show up with the dog hats on. And I think that does us a disservice, right? So, Browns fans, shout out to the Browns fans.
I'm a Bears fan. Ain't much better. Ain't much better.
Very loyal.
Ain't much better.
You're Giants fans that still wearing
every
the jerseys.
year. I think it's the Bears year. It ain't. Every year I think we found a quarterback.
Fan,
so I mean,
that's.
Yeah,
say a prayer for him.
Yeah, it's
loyalty.
Tough.
But I think that we've adopted this mentality, and I think as Americans, so these are the main things, right? This is my focus with this administration. It'll be a huge topic in the podcast is tariffs and how they will be the conduit and the road to allow them to then alleviate us of taxes, right? Getting rid of income tax at the federal level is the goal. I think that it's imperative that all Americans are on the same side on that. I think it's super important that we have protection at our borders, right? And we have a process, and the people that are willing to work hard, that do come here and work hard, right? Because we're all from somewhere else, get the opportunity to do that, and we don't spoil it by having a process that doesn't allow for that. Lower taxes, social.
No wars.
When it comes to social, is something I'm going to touch on a lot. As being a young black man who gets a lot of blowback, right? A lot of Uncle Toms, a lot of criticism for some of my views. I feel the need to kind of break it down and tell you why I feel the way I feel. And like I said, be an outlet for other people that feel the way I feel. But I mean, like I said, out there in the wild, it's kind of hard to not when you don't tote the line and you have opinions that view from the herd. So that's important to me, and it's something I'll touch on a lot. I'll implement that into a lot of my spiel because I think that it's good to have duality on both sides. So even the people that continue to stay on the other side or have the Green Party or whatever party that you stand with, I think it's good that we all have things like RFK presented, right? Like the revitalizing the food system and taking out the chemicals. That should be across the board, bipartisan. We should all agree on that.
Everyone should agree with it. Yeah.
And I think when we get to that point, it'll be a way healthier system and a process for everybody.
Yeah.
I think the direction that things are headed in, even if you're feeling worry, if you're feeling anxiety, you're guaranteed that things will be better. It's moving in the right direction across the board. There's nothing happening now that's bad, and that's important to me too. I have family members that are super duper Democrat, and I have friends. I grew up in a liberal place, and I'm in a liberal place currently, right? We're in the middle of Allentown filming this, and I think it's important that we have allies on both sides. So, like I said, we'll continue to kind of say that, because I want people to know that we're coming from a good place, right? And it's super important to me that we break down the details, and you don't always take it at face value. The immigration topic,
Definitely not.
It could be something that could be kind of, you know what I mean, a little sensitive for some people, and a lot of the things we touch on is going to be very sensitive for people. So I think it's super important that we reiterate a million times that we're coming from a good place, and we'll continue to get better, right?
Yeah.
And we'll spot check ourselves. He'll spot check me, and we'll continue to work at it. So
and a few things, it's not people's fault either. I want to point that it's not people's fault that you don't know these things or you don't know the statistics behind it or anything like that, because the legacy media doesn't really give you statistics. They give you slogans and they give you like hyperbolic reactions.
We're not going back.
Yeah, they give you hyperbolic reactions. Everything Trump does, he's Hitler.
Yeah.
When in reality, like he was saying about the healthcare system, that should be bipartisan. The Department of Education getting better or being removed since education systems have completely declined since we've implemented it should be bipartisan to get rid of it. Government overbloat should be bipartisan. Ending wars should be bipartisan. No new wars should be bipartisan. That's the thing. I'm not for the old Republican Party at all. I actually despise the old Republican Party probably more than I despise the Democratic Party currently. The old Republican Party of like neocons and going into wars and intervening in the Middle East has just been a complete disaster.
I guess the best way to say it is Joe Biden was terrible, but George Bush was the worst, right?
I mean, I have no problem saying that.
I like
no problem saying that.
Obama, I think, caused a lot of social unrest, so Obama I'm still on the fence about, but like even with him with the border.
Right.
He was
Obama did a great job with
What did they call him? The
chief deporter.
Chief deporter.
And that's another thing. Everyone's talking about, Trump's not giving these illegals due process. I just want to point this out to you all. The ACLU, not me, the ACLU said Obama didn't give 83% of illegals due process. He just deported them, okay? They did not get due process. Mind you, the one that everyone's in an uproar about and being hyperbolic about it, they're calling him the Maryland man. 2 judges said he was an MS-13 gang member. They adjudicated that. 2 judges, okay? He had due process. They said he was an MS-13 gang member. He got accused of domestic assault by his wife. He was pulled over with 8 people that were sharing the same address, and the person that his car he was driving was literally locked up later for human trafficking. So this guy had due process. When you're hearing the media be like, this guy, he's just a Maryland man, he's just a Maryland father. No, it's a lie. And this is the thing. How many times does the media have to lie to you for you to realize that they're lying to you? They've lied to you about literally everything, especially since COVID. If COVID wasn't a wake-up call for you guys, hopefully us speaking more and maybe giving you more information like I just gave you just now and like John's giving you will open your eyes to it, because
it's all a scam.
It's almost everything. Like I said right from the start,
really
the biggest peddlers of misinformation and disinformation is the legacy media.
It's all a scam.
They are pure state-run propaganda. They are literally getting they were literally getting funded by your government for talking points.
And this is huge to me. The biggest thing right now is the fact that we can do this, right? Like our grandparents and even our parents are the most propagandized generation ever, right? Like, so we're in an era where I'm super excited about things moving forward.
There was no pushback then.
Because there was a long period of time where I think a lot of people, and I'm sure many people, when I was working through the election cycle, a little background, I worked with the Conservative Rights PAC, and we did a commercial, and in the process, we were speaking to people, and there was a bunch of other things that were involved with it. But moral of the story, it allowed us to get out in the streets and boots on the street, so we got to talk to many demographics of different people. And I think the main thing that I noticed for the low propensity voters, which was most of the people that we spoke to, were the fact that they thought that their vote didn't matter. And I think that that's a travesty. I think that it is super important that we hold politicians accountable. Right. And one thing that I like in this modern era of politics from 2016 to now, despite the chaos, right, and despite some of the theatrics, is the fact that it proves that the people can hold the politicians accountable and the people's voice does matter. And I think that's super important. We've had radical change, and it's just ironic to me is that the whole election was about a vote for democracy, and now democracy is in play. And unfortunately, it just seems like the powers that be don't like that. So just remember that the system that was designed to continue to grow, get bigger and get bigger, get bigger, get bigger, and as it got bigger, slowly became less of a voice for the people, right, and wasn't representative of the wishes of the people, is the same system that you're fighting to protect.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's important that you realize that, right? Right. So
it's you think you're the resistance, but you're actually working on behalf of the system that wants to enslave you.
Yeah.
It's literally it's and like I said before, it's not your fault. You've been told a lie for so long, especially the older generation, because like you said, they really had no outlets. There was no pushback.
Outlets, yeah.
So you've been told a lie for so long, and life's busy, man. I get it. I have 3 kids myself, a wife, a house, working. You know, he's doing a bunch of things. Everybody's doing so many things. There's so many things in your face being thrown at you all times throughout the day. You know what I mean?
But
so it's hard to pay attention. But don't worry, you got us. Not everything's black and white, baby.
We're going to piece it together. We're going to pull all the pieces of the best stuff, and we're going to slap it together and put a sandwich with chips.
We're not trying to get like too deep into everything today. I mean, we ran a little bit longer than we wanted to, but let me just touch on these few things. So the things that I disagree with on Trump thus far is the stuff with Gaza. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with it. The fact that he's pushing those anti-Semitic laws in college campuses, because I don't feel like it's good. Free speech is important. Free speech is very important. I mean, even the ACLU, I referenced them before. They advocating for the KKK to have a voice, to be able to speak. Okay, and if you're advocating for them to have a voice and they're allowed to have a voice, then anyone, I'm not talking about be violent, but anyone should be able to say what they want. Free speech. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't agree with what he's done with that, because you can't set a certain set of laws for just one group, because we spoke about this before the pod. If you do that, someone else is going to get into a power and take that to a whole nother level.
Correct.
So I don't agree with Trump on that, and also I don't agree with him on if he goes to war with Iran. I'm going to critique him like crazy. But even like starting any wars, I do not agree with. I didn't even agree with him bombing the Houthis, because that was basically, and I actually loved when the signal stuff leaked, because I saw J.D. Vance push back on it and Tulsi Gabbard. That's another thing. People say like Trump's a fascist, but he has all these people that literally disagree with a lot of his ideology.
Exactly.
in his, and he loves it. He wants
a cabinet of Democrats.
Right. Yeah, basically.
Also, he's a vice president that hated him. Formerly didn't like him.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone's like, oh, he's a fascist. Fascists don't put people around him that literally are from other parties.
Government.
He likes to have that discourse, and then everyone come up with the best idea. That's what he's really doing with the tariffs. But so I like that J.D. Vance had pushback on the Houthis bombing, because that was basically a favor for Europe that we were doing, because 40% of their goods came through that port, and the Houthis were attacking the ships. Only 2% of ours come through that port. Yeah. So it was like let Europe do their own shit. Like, stop getting involved with all these other countries. Just let them handle it. They can handle it. We've been subsidizing them for how long? Exactly. Militarily. Let them do it. Why are we doing it? And just to touch on the tariffs real quick. So the tariffs that everybody's in an uproar about, going crazy, you're gonna cost more. The tariff's been implemented for what, a month now? Inflation went down.
Yeah, inflation went down. Also, I think it should be noted that everybody will come to the table. My point that I'm gonna finish with is, you're an American, right? And I don't want to cuss on here, but if you're a goddamn American, realize that we run this shit, right?
Yeah.
And this is gonna get bleeped out.
Yeah.
However, we have the #1 GDP. Our GDP is everybody's combined. We are the consumer. We are the important facet. We are the asset. We could be in complete isolation.
Control everything.
And everybody needs to always remember that. Even China, which I actually looked at the numbers and it would surprise me. China's whole stock market and all the Asian countries combined is not bigger than ours. So at the end of the day, we consume the most, and I think that the reckoning is here, and people will realize the ramifications 5, 6, 10 years down the line when we're back to where we should be. Make America Great was turned into something that was a racist term. It always blew my mind. Make America Great should be a collective agreement
Right,
across
I agree.
the board. So if we're talking about things I don't like the way Trump dances. And I also don't like that he picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, but he just had the Eagles at the White House, so we'll give him a pass.
Yeah, Saquon, baby.
He also should probably go see my barber, but that's a story for next week.
Yeah.
So,
just to touch on the tariffs, everyone agreed on this, even your politicians. Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they all wanted to put tariffs on all these countries and have free trade and redo the trade. They didn't do it. Do you know why they didn't do it? Because they didn't have the guts to do it.
They didn't have the guts to do it.
They're captured by corporations. Trump is 78 years old. He's already a billionaire, and he's saying, "Screw it. I want to." Whatever's been going on with our economy for the last 30 years since we let China in the WTO has not worked for the average American. I explained that to you earlier, where you were able to be a single one person working in a household, supporting a family of 4. Now you got to work 2-3 jobs to support a family. You know what I mean? It's obviously something has gone wrong.
And to make that the status quo, we're not going to do that, right? And that's important to me too. I think that we've slowly over time, right? I'm all about work hard, be accountable, take care of your family, do what you have to do. However, I feel like we've been sold a bill of lies, and it's important that people work together on this. This is beyond politics. It comes down to a basic human level. Dumb these issues down and bring it to your front door and simplify it in a way that makes sense to you. And as time goes on, you can't look around and everything, right? Everything that we've talked about, even down to healthcare, it doesn't make sense, right? And I think some people have this socialist mentality, and that's what's kind of been interjected into the process is people are in the point where they're losing hope, so then they're being sold socialism, where then they're getting this thought process that everything's going to be free if you pay X amount of taxes or more taxes are required, when in turn there's no socialist country or communist country where you can look at where people have freedom and they live a good life. The first thing that goes in these kind of totalitarian regimes is anytime they want to take free speech from you, regardless of what you say, right? Regardless of what your opinion is, you should be able to say that. And when they try to take your weapons, there's casualties in the process. However, that is kind of the first thing that leaves the island when people are being pushed towards these kind of things. So keep that in mind. If you're somebody that thinks things are going to be free, no, they're not going to be free, and you shouldn't want that. We should all strive to work hard and take care of our families. However, we should refine the processes and
common sense.
Removing government from this. Some of the processes is going to be beneficial for you, regardless if you like it or not. So common sense approach. We'll probably put a pin in it there.
Yeah, that's fun.
So listen, we're looking forward to coming on every week, having guests on. Like I said, we'll get it right, we'll get it wrong, but we're gonna have fun. And I want to dedicate this episode to my grandmother, who unfortunately passed away last night. So listen, rock and rolling. Not everything's black and white.
Not everything's black and white, baby.
Bam.